What's good, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's your boys. It's Dale's. It's Pove. It's Flyers Talk A2D coming at you live on a Tuesday night. Got some stuff to talk about here. Were recent remarks last week from Rick Tocchet leading to certain expectations that the team might have for this team moving forward into the 25-26 season. We're also going to talk about some NHL news going on along the way. A Mason McTavish update. Marco Rossi's finally signed. We're going to talk about that and so much more. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe. Time to get the conversation rolling. Let's go talk some puck. Let's do this. Well, another Tuesday night, Flyers Talk A2T coming at you. Dale's, Pove. Got a lot to talk about tonight. Rick Tocchet is on the docket to be discussed along with the organization of the Philadelphia Flyers. We're also going to be talking some NHL news going on that has happened around the league over the last week. We are a man down, no Matt Sinsudia tonight. We are on the penalty kill, but you know what? Like always, we'll handle the penalty kill, and we'll be fine. We'll get back to even strength next week. But we are brought to you by, as always, SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. Head on over, see Dr. Paul Vidal. He's our doc. Make him yours. Any aches and pains, muscle soreness, anything like that, joint pain, go see the doc. He'll take care of it. Robbie, how are you doing? How was your week?
Good, man. Good. Things are going well. I got the green monster back in the driveway, not overheating anymore. So she survives. My 2010 Camaro still plugging along. Good mileage. I mean, it's like 128,000 miles. So I kept her nice and clean. So hopefully, yeah, she could last. But otherwise, going good, man. Looking forward to Labor Day weekend. Yourself, brother?
Same old, dude. Grinding hard. Looking forward to my Tuesday nights. And then, same old. Relaxing, doing clips all week for the show to help promote us. So, all right, let's talk about it. So Rick Tocchet tweet. Actually, let's start over. Jason Martinez put out a tweet the other day. It's probably about a week ago now, 5 days ago, so almost a week. Jason Martinez puts out a tweet from a quote from Rick Tocchet. So we're gonna start here, and then we're gonna go from there. Tweet reads out from Jason Martinez as he goes to say, well stated by the Flyers' new bench boss. Quoted as saying, 5 years without playoffs is unacceptable. If you can't handle the weight of the crest, you don't belong here. I didn't return for nostalgia. I came back to push this team, even if it ruffles feathers. So that's an interesting comment. Obviously, we have our expectations for the most part for this team moving forward. We know that this is still a bit of a rebuild. We know, as a fan base, our expectations are probably going to be a little bit lower. Some fans think it's still going to be 2 to 3 years. There's some fans that think it's still going to be longer. Does this shift expectation for this team? So with that being said, Rob, our poll tonight, Rick Tocchet is setting the tone for the season with recent remarks. Agree or disagree?
I'll tell you this much. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That's what you want to hear from your leader, from your head coach coming in, that 5 years it's unacceptable. And if you're not willing to, handle the weight of the crest, you don't belong here. And that he's not here for nostalgia. This isn't nepotism. This isn't the same old Flyers. You're right. He's here to push this team. So in regard to the poll, I agree. I mean, it is setting a strong tone and saying it now, not even after training camp, leading into training camp, I think is big. I think it shows Tocchet's mission here is to teach, to untap potential, and to win now. To your point before, that there's an acceleration going on in this rebuild, and clearly he's not messing around. And I got to take this time, Brian, and say I must eat some crow. I stated last week, as a former player in Tocchet, he would be patient with the struggling stars, such as TK, as we've seen from time to time. But what this tells me is if you play the right way and earn your keep, you'll see top-line minutes. You don't, expect limited minutes. Tocchet isn't afraid to ride the hot hand. We've seen that in his coaching career. And I think this really builds upon the culture that's been built here in Philly during this rebuild. So not only is it a fresh voice, but it's also not ignoring, it's not erasing what we saw under the Torts era and what Danny B and Keith Jones have built here in Philadelphia, Brian.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we have to remember here is this team is rebuilding, and they never really went in the full tank mode. And if you look at the roster that they have now, the roster is really not in bad shape. Do they have some holes they need to fill? Absolutely. But I don't think there's a ton of holes here. So I'm with you. I agree to this poll. I absolutely think he's setting a tone, and I think he's the type of guy that you want to set your tone. I don't necessarily remember Torts ever really coming out and saying anything like that. I mean, he's definitely said some stuff to kind of get me ready to run through a wall, but nothing like this. The past 5 years of no playoffs is unacceptable. Just think about that for a second. Obviously, we know teams' expectations every year, whether you're one of the best teams in the league or you're one of the worst teams in the league. The expectation every season for every team is to win a Stanley Cup, get to the playoffs, win more games than they did last year. Every team's expectation is to get better. I think this Flyers team is going to take a bigger step forward than I expected. I mean, obviously, you still have a big question mark in Dan Vladar. We know that he's a solid goaltender, but what's his role really going to be? And how much pressure is he going to take off of Sam Ersson? And how much of a step forward can Sam Ersson take after last year? He did have some questionable moments for sure, but I mean, that to me is going to be the biggest question mark for the Flyers this year. They have issues up front at center. Yeah, the depth isn't there; they're a little thin, but I think they have enough bodies there that they can make up for some of the lack of offense in that specific position. That Mitch Cobb, you're gonna see huge numbers from. TK, you're gonna see some pretty good numbers from. Hopefully, he at least repeats from last year. Tipper, you want to see take a big step forward. So there's definitely, I understand some people's hesitation, and this statement right here. Now I'll pull it back up. This right here. Actually, let me get the poll question out of the way. I came back to push this team, even if it ruffles feathers. I'm ready to go. When's training camp start? Like, can we get going now?
Run through a wall comment right there, 100%, Brian.
I love it. I love it. So I guess that brings me to my next question for you, Rob. Is, to me, in my mind, obviously we're talking about setting a tone. Does this feel more like he's kind of peeking or previewing what Jonesy and Briere might want for this team? Like, do you think this is previewing expectations for this team moving forward?
Yeah, it echoes from up top, because I see the only thing I disagreed with you, Brian, was that it does kind of reek of things we were seeing from Torts. So I think some of that comes from up top because, all three guys have to be on the same page. And we saw for quite some time, Torts was on the same page with Keith and Danny until he wasn't. And then he was gone. Right. Yeah. So Rick comes in, and this is all about accountability, that, missing the playoffs 5 straight years, that's unacceptable in Philadelphia. Growing up as a Philadelphia Flyers fan here, right, we're used to seeing the playoffs every year and being a competitive team in that tournament. And to be out 5 years, there has to be that level of accountability. So, but you're not asking for it out of nowhere as a new voice. It's already, that request has been made. So I think it does. I think it does coincide with Danny and Keith's vision. But it's also, let's face facts, Rick Tocchet is a brash guy. He's not worried about ruffling some feathers, as you read so eloquently, and as he stated so ferociously. So, it'll be good to see. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential that this man can elicit. And a lot of that, as much as we want to think about the offensive side of the puck, a lot of that comes to the defensive side of the puck. And with additions, for depth like Dvorak, right? We talked about last week how he brings a big defensive prowess. That's only going to help out your defensive core that's young and still learning and growing and looking to take the next step. And as they take that next step, and with a little better backing of a defensive centerman and Dvorak, as well as other guys on this team, that can Couturier, who played pretty well towards the last stretch at the end of last season, to really build upon for this season and to look bright. That's going to help the goaltending situation. And I know I'm higher on the goaltending situation here in Philadelphia than most, but it's all about the play in front. And as they clean up the play in front, you're going to get better numbers between the pipes. I believe this team can contend for a wild card with the way they're currently constructed. But like I said, I believe I'm higher on the goaltending than most.
I want to be higher on the goaltending. I tell you that.
Statement.
Yeah, I do. I want to be. I want to be so bad, because we've seen Urson and his ability to be able to be a very good tandem goaltender. So the question is going to be, can Dan Vladar hold up his weight? Because if he can't hold up his weight, I don't necessarily know if this team is going to compete. But overall, I'm with you. I think they're going to compete. I think this team, whether or not they make the playoffs or not, is going to be much improved from last year. But I'm with you. If you can't clean up the front of the net and get kind of stop the sloppy play, your goaltending is going to kind of fall back to what it was last year. I mean, like I said, there's definitely some moving pieces here that need to kind of be more cemented. Like Fedotov could wind up stealing a spot from somebody. Is it likely? Probably not, but I do think Fedotov might wind up stealing some time. But yeah, you're right. Couturier, by the end of last year, he started to look a little bit more like a shell of the version of himself, but in a positive way. So, right. Especially on the defensive side, I don't think he ever really lost a defensive touch. Definitely his offensive game has definitely been hindered from missing that time. So hopefully getting a full year under his belt will definitely help take this team and his leadership at least to another level, so he can help carry this team a little bit more. We know that he's a good leader. We know that he has the capability to be a 30-goal scorer. Do I think he's going to be that guy anymore? No, but I'll be happy with 15 from him. But I'm more looking for him to be more of that shutdown center that he was early on in his career. But before we move on, let's get to some of these comments in here. I saw Pete Evans saying what's up, saying two-man line tonight. Swoopy's in the chat saying good evening to the best guys. You're damn right we're the best guys. You're damn right. He goes on to say it's a big rebuild. It's not a little bit of a rebuild. I'm not quite sure what that means, but yeah, it's definitely a big rebuild. We gotta get moving on that. Swoopy goes on to say the players need to keep trying and put all their effort in, and don't rush with big moves. And going back to always, no rushing to rebuild, please. Don't necessarily know if they're rushing the rebuild, or if they just feel like with the way the roster is constructed right now that they're ready to take the next step.
Yeah, challenging young men, really, to take that next step. Exactly.
Yep. Soupy said no, being double-minded as an organization. Keep the rebuild going. No rushing to rebuild. I want a great team for a long time. No getting desperate to make big moves yet. 2 years. Keep it going. No double-mindedness.
No, I mean, you've drafted for depth, that there could be definitely different layers of prospects hitting the pipeline. And that ties in to your concerns for the backup goaltender, Brian, right? I'm a firm believer in Sam Harrison. I think he could take the load, but even in tandem, okay, if you get a ceiling season from Vladar, which we saw 2 seasons ago in Calgary, where he had a save percentage north of 900 and goals against about 3. I'm not going to look it up exactly, but it was around that ballpark. Mm-hmm. Not expecting that, but if you get that, then you're great. Then you're set. If you don't get that, you do have depth. You do have a Fedotov. right? You do have, let's say down the road, as the Phantoms season is drawing near an end, and Carson Bjarnsson's been lights out for the Phantoms, as I know he can be. He gets a shot, but he's a shot in the arm of this team as they make a push for the playoffs. And we've seen when it comes to playoff time, it's all about the hot hand, and anything can go from there. But like I said, I think Erison's young enough to be a part. We've talked about that on many past shows, Brian, about how he can be a part of this rebuild, both short-term and long-term. And I don't think we've even seen the best play from Erison yet, but there's a lot of depth behind as well.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind too is I try and preach this. I preached this with heart when he was going through his struggles. Guys, goaltenders don't typically hit their prime until 25, 26. So Erison's getting close. We haven't seen his best yet. He's still considered a developing goalie.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm expecting to see Erison put up hopefully a little bit better numbers from last year, but I don't necessarily believe that he's going to skyrocket. I don't think he's going to turn into like a Vasilevsky or anything like that, but I think he's going to be a really good goalie. And like I said, if Vladar can pull his weight behind him, I like this tandem. And I think to Joe's comment here, in that 1920, maybe the Flyers caught lightning in a bottle. Maybe they can do it again this year. Crazy shit's happened before in the past in the NHL when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs. All they have to do is get there, and they can go on a run. They can go on crazy talk right now. I know it sounds like, but I mean, all you got to do is get there, and crazy shit happens. I mean, look at the LA Kings. They went in as an 8 seed, and they ran the table. Look at the St. Louis Blues. Same situation. Went in as an 8 seed, ran the table after being a team that was dead last in the league that year.
Yeah.
All it takes is just getting in. And like I said, I do feel that they have the roster constructed well enough to be able to do that. Now, Robbie, here's where I think another variable comes into play with as far as this team's expectations. So obviously we're hearing from Rick Tocchet. So we need to hear. I want to hear a little bit more from some of the other bench bosses too. So I want to hear from Yogi. I want to hear from the coach from Detroit. I want to hear what these guys have planned for like power play, penalty kill, because they need to improve from last year. Granted, the power play was improved from 2 years ago, not much, but it was improved from a couple of years ago. Where's this? How are we gonna create offense on the power play that's going to create prime scoring chances? What are we going to do on the power play to try and keep teams on the outside and force shots from the point where you can give them an opportunity to get a block? Give whoever is in net a clear shot to be able to make a play on the puck to maybe throw it in the corner, something like that. I mean, tell me, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you would want to hear to kind of give yourself a better idea of where this team's heading?
I wouldn't mind hearing from Verde and Yogi, but I let it come from one source, right? So they're the guys behind the scene, and you have one voice, right? Too many voices, too many spoons spoils the soup. So I think I like hearing it from one voice personally. I know that contradicts kind of where you're coming from there, but I think it's key to the leadership as this team continues to take the next step with the current roster constructed. Yes, Brian, absolutely. But to Ryan's Swoop's point, right, is that yes, you're building up these guys, and if you find yourself in that position come trade deadline this year, or more likely in the offseason next year when Flyers have a lot of money dropping off the book and can basically have a blank check for maybe some free agents moving forward, right? You want to start adding on to it too. You don't want to rest purely on like prospect pedigree is great, right? Mm-hmm. But you want to fill in and round out the holes, really put the cement on the rebuild of this building. Right. So I think there's ways where you can do both. But in terms of your question, Brian, right, definitely, like for me, hearing it from one voice is key for me.
And that makes sense. Like I get it. So I mean, even if it's not from Yogi or Verde, I want to hear somebody say something about how obviously you don't want to give away you don't want to give away the magic of what the power play or the penalty kill could be. Obviously, we don't want to give away what's it called, the recipe for success. So I mean, obviously, a big part of that recipe is what's up, Tommy? What's up, Greggy? Um, Finding guys who can create offense. Obviously, we want that, right? A lot of guys are saying rebuild. Swoopy is saying don't go after any free agents, but I'm I'm giving somebody a blank check this offseason. You know, there's a lot of young talent and there's some incredible talent that's going to be on this free agency pool that is going to make this team better. They're going to help take this team to the next level. And if they're in a situation where they can't figure out ways to create offense, you can't rely too much on your prospect pool for that. You know, you can't continue to wait on these guys to develop. You need guys if they're ready to take this step now and they're ready to jump into win now mode this year, you're going to have to make a move. You got to make a splash. You know, there's going to be a ton of intriguing names. There's guys out there, and we are teasing our second half of the show a little bit. There's a lot of intriguing names out there, but they're going to come with a heavy price tag. But you brought up a great point, Rob. They're going to have a lot of money to play with this offseason. So the thing I like here, Rob, is you're setting the tone early. You're setting the tone about 2 weeks before camp.
Right.
You're setting the tone not just for this season. You're setting the tone for, okay, we failed this year. That's 6 years. It's still unacceptable. We have to get there next year. There's a lot of teams out there or there's a lot of players via free agency that are going to be looking at that and say, hey, this team's ready to go. You know, the team I'm with is starting to backtrack. You know, we're starting to lose more games. We just missed the playoffs. This team's about to get there. Go for it. You know, hand a McDavid a blank check. Hand a Kirill Kaprizov a blank check. Hand a Jack Eichel a blank check. Like, you can't rely. I'm a big guy on prospects. I love rebuild. Plug the guys in where you can. But at some point, with what Tocchet has said in the last week, I'm diving headfirst into free agency next year, and I'm handing somebody a blank check here. Put your amount on here. We're going to make it happen. You have to, right?
You do. I mean, because if you have, I mean, I like building a team of all homegrown players, right? And even if several of these guys turn out to be elite stars in this league, right? They've never been in this league. So I like pairing that with several of free agents that you can ascertain both offensively and defensively. I think 2 off seasons from now, Quinn Hughes will be available, and he has familiarity with Rick Tocchet and his system. So it's way that you can provide leadership in terms of NHL experience. It's way teams you can make this team better. And we talked about in past weeks, Brian, how you bring in a coach like Rick Tocchet to make Philadelphia an attractive place for free agents. So you do need to pair that with your homegrown players, because that way you build a complete team, 4 lines producing, right? And more so than that, it's like you want to keep these free agents also away from your competition. So it's a twofold concept. Mm-hmm. You're not only adding to your team, but you're subtracting to what your opponent or your rival could potentially add to their roster.
Right. And here's to piggyback off of that, because this is an absolute perfect situation. The Devils, right? Devils their window is pretty freshly open. You brought up Quinn Hughes, and I think this is a perfect example of what you just said. Quinn Hughes wants to be closer to his brothers. He even wants to get to the point where he wants to play with his brothers. Both of those guys are on the Devils, obviously. that becomes a very attractive situation for Quinn Hughes. But in that same breath, a really attractive situation is playing with the coach that made him an elite defender, which he's always had that talent, but he's Tocchet helped get him to the next level. I think he's playing at a higher level than anybody expected him. So, yeah, I mean, you bring in a Tocchet to bring in free agents. So, I mean, to Swoopy's comment here, he says, if the guy is 23 to 26, yes, but veterans to long-term deals, no way. Issue with that is anybody that's going to be 23 to 26, Swoopy, is going to be under contract. Most of those guys, they're not going to test free agency. And most of them are going to have an RFA contract on top of it, which means if you want them, you have to offer sheet them, and there's compensation going back the other way depending on where they're falling. So, yeah, but you say vets to 1-year deals. Okay, you're not signing Jack Eichel to a 1-year deal. You're not signing Kirill Kaprizov to a 1-year deal. You're not signing Connor McDavid to a 1-year deal. Those are 3 of the top UFA potential targets for every team in the league next year. You can't pass up that opportunity to bring in an elite talent like that.
Right.
Especially
but
if
these
you
guys
have
aren't even
an
far
guy.
off, Brian. They're not even that far off, right? There's bets, quote unquote bets, however you want to refer to it, right? You can still target guys that are on the minus side of 30, like Jack Eichel is going to be, I believe, 29 next season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he still fits. You still target guys that fit what you're building here, right? Yeah, you're not bringing in a 38-year-old, like that. I mean, the only way I see that, and I talked about this in terms of bringing in Nielsen potentially for a playoff run, right? You bring in that if you're close, if you're sniffing the playoffs and you want an experienced guy, but the Flyers kind of already did that with like a Dvorak, right? So he's more than likely going to be on the trading block, to your point from last week, that he'll be somebody else's little acquisition that doesn't quite fit what they're doing team-wise, but it helps you get an added player with playoff experience. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a way where you could do both. You could still go after free agents, but not go against what your plan here is for the rebuild.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a blueprint here, and I know that they're not going to show it, but I'm getting a little bit more of an idea of what this blueprint is. Obviously, you want to get your Michkovs, your Tyson Forsters, guys like that. You want to get them up. You want to get them ready to go. These are guys that, I mean, obviously Michkov had a breakout rookie season. We're expecting to see him take the next step. You bring in a guy like a Trevor Zegras, a guy who's probably closer to breaking out and needs a breakout year, probably more than anybody on this roster. You expect the rebound year out of Tipper. Like, the way that this team is constructed right now, there's a ton of offensive potential. And you're going to free up a ton of money after this year. You're probably going to free up a ton of that money at the trade deadline too. So many different ways to go. The expectations of this team, it's feeling like it's playoff or bust this year for this team. Again, that's why you bring in a Tocchet. That's why I think they were very picky about what they did in this offseason. That's why you bring in a Christian Dvorak. Help some of these younger centers kind of take that next step forward and become a little more defensively responsible. So, obviously, we're hearing a lot of fun too. Tocchet's allowing these guys to have fun. Michkov specifically is, joking around with Zegras, saying, "Oh, I want him to teach me how to do the Michigan and all this stuff." So there's going to be a lot of fun for this team. We talked about it last week, kind of breaking down the roster combos. But to me, the expectation for this team is win now, or at least get to the playoffs. I think that's going to be a bare minimum for them. Swoopy also said, no more Hayes and JVR deals to vets. Do it with 26 to 20-year-olds. But again, 23 to 26-year-olds are already going to be locked up for the most part. Those are when most of those guys are going to start finding their prime. So that being said, make sure we hit that like, we hit that subscribe. Make sure we tune in every week. We definitely want to have a conversation with everybody. That's what we're here for. We're A2D. We're not here to be reporters. We're not here to break the news or anything like that. We're here to have a conversation. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, be a part of the conversation, jump in the comments. We'll read off every comment that we can throughout the night. And we'll get to Swoopy's comment here. He says, be wise, too, with who the free agent is. Don't just offer guys because they're the only ones available. If they're not the right fit, don't force it, which I think we saw this offseason. There were some interesting names out there, but I mean, they were very picky about who they took. So I think that's telling me a lot of what they're looking to do in free agency, not just this year, but maybe moving forward, Rob.
Right. No, I do think that indicates that there's foresight, right? There's okay, you want to win now, right? But I don't think it's make the playoffs or bust, right? Because I think it's okay now, like you said before, right? We haven't made it 6 straight seasons, and then the fire gets turned up, right? This is building the foundation for years to come, and we've seen the moves reflect that. So I wouldn't expect that to be. So I think Swoopy, you could rest at ease on that. But what I do like seeing though is just an aggressive nature, right? You had to hit reboot, right? Because there was no fight in this team. And then you created that fight, that snarl back, right? And so you have to take it to the next level, and this is clearly what Rick Tocchet's doing here. And as he's manning the ship, right, with these players, right, he can not only elicit the best out of them, but also encourage this team to maybe overperform and outshine expectations. And I think that as we talk about and wrapping up what our expectations are for this team, Brian, as I said earlier, I believe they can contend for a wild card if the goaltending proves to be up to my expectations.
Throwing that word around a lot tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. To me, like I said in the beginning of the show, the big thing is going to be, can the goaltenders hold up their end? Because I do believe the offense is going to be fine. I think the defense may probably struggle a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be anything to the point where the Flyers are going to wind up finishing dead last and punching their ticket for Gavin McKenna. I do believe that he's going to probably wind up going to Pittsburgh or somewhere crazy like that. So, especially after signing and going to Penn State, at least for next year anyway. So as always, that was brought to us by specializedphysicaltherapy.com. So make sure we go check them out. Dr. Paul, he's our doc, making yours. All right. So second half of the show here, Robbie, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the NHL news that's been kind of happening around the league. Not a whole lot going on. This really is a quiet time of year. Rosters are starting to be finalized. Guys are getting ready for camp. Guys are starting to head to the cities where, their camps are starting to be. So before I have you read off the news that you have over on your side, the one thing I do want to touch on, and it is linked to the Flyers, so this is kind of why I want to bring it up first, is a little bit of an update on Mason McTavish. He hasn't been signed yet. He's still one of the top RFAs, still in free agency, still doesn't have a contract yet. So with camps kind of opening up within the next few weeks, Elliot Friedman did give a little bit of an update on what is going on out there. I know I see rumors, with the Flyers linked to Mason McTavish. I mean, Flyers, as much as they need him, personally, Rob, I don't see it happening. From what Elliot Friedman is saying on 32 Thoughts, apparently they're both on the same page. They want him to stay in Anaheim, so they're there. Apparently, they have term locked up. Last I heard on that was Mason wanted 8 years, Verbeek wanted 3. So Verbeek and the Ducks wanted more of a bridge deal. He wanted long term. So I don't know if they came to an agreement somewhere in the middle, maybe like a 5 or 6 year deal. But apparently they're battling over salary now. So, I mean, I personally think he give him the 6.5 a year. Based off of one of the other guys that we're going to be talking about here, I think that's definitely fair value based off of the contract that he got in the same situation. So for me, my update is give Mason McTavish 5-6 years at 6.5, and I think we're good there. We're gonna have that break in a week. I'm calling it now. Calling that now.
Matter of
But
moments,
yeah,
matter of days.
yeah. So I mean, his link to the Flyers, I just feel like is just based off of obviously Zegers and Drysdale coming from Anaheim, Briere creating that pretty good relationship with Pat Verbeek. But what do you got going on over on your side, Robbie? What do you got for us news wise?
Well, I will say that the Anaheim Ducks will be foolish to let Mason McTavish walk, and I think they will lock it down as well. But if not, he would fit what Swoopy's going for because he's only 22. Isn't that right, Brian? Mason
About
McTavish?
22, 23. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, he fits exactly. A big-bodied center iceman would absolutely fit well here. You know who else would fit really well? We talked about him before. That's Jack Eichel. There's reports coming out, and we talked about last week that we had our doubts that he would leave Vegas. He would work out a deal to stay there long term, but there's reports that he wants to test free agency yet again in his career and really maximize on what should be his last deal in the NHL season. I mean, like I said, he's only 28 years old, but he's looking for something long term at this point. If Vegas should not be interested, should the Flyers be in on Eichel and the money it would require? And would that money be better suited spent on several different free agents versus one free agent, Brian?
That's a good question, brother. I would be all in on Eichel. It kind of fits a need. Obviously, you know, he can play center. He can actually play wing as well, which is good. So he does have that versatility there. But again, we're talking about high producing offensive numbers. A guy who's pretty defensively responsible. He's not the best two-way player, but you know, he's making all his money off of the points that he scores. So yeah, I'm going to give him a blank check, and I'm going to sit there and say, you just fill out this number here. We're going to make this work. If I'm the Flyers, I'm not going after a ton of guys this offseason. I'm going after one, maybe two. And, you know, Jack Eichel, I listed the guys already. For those who are just joining us, like Eileen and Don, appreciate you guys jumping in. We miss you guys. I know we don't see you guys every week, but, you know, always appreciative when you guys jump on. We do miss you guys. You know, Kaprizov, McDavid, Eichel, those are the top three guys that I'm going after because I do think I'm going to go out on a limb here. I got a hot take. I got a hot take here. I think Flyers, if everything's right and the Flyers are pushing and they're within a playoff spot, I'm going to say they go trade for Quinn Hughes. And I think they're going to get that deal done sooner than later. I do think he winds up in the Metro because he's leaving Vancouver once his contract's up. I think he leaves Vancouver. I think he's either signing in New Jersey when his contract's up, or he's going to be traded to Philly and then he'll sign an extension.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah. And then a lot of people aren't big on Sanheim. You can send like a Sanheim the other way. You can send a Risto the other way. You can knock York down to a second pairing and throw Quinn Hughes up on the first pairing with Sanheim. There's a bunch of different things you can do. But back to Eichel, I'm giving him a blank check. I think you're dumb not to. At 29, he'll be 29, right? Give him a 5-year deal. Puts him at 34. And then you let him hit free agency again. Or you get crazy, you lock him up for 8 years and you hold on to him until he's 37.
That's what he's going to be looking for. Honestly, I think that's what it's going to take, and that's what makes me a little bit nervous. And also the money that it'll command, too. You don't want to put yourself right back in a hole. I think you could fill a couple holes, right? Or maybe save that money for Quinn Hughes, which I think, you know, allow our young forwards to really fill a role like that. But I mean, Eichel is on another level. I'm not saying not be interested in on him, but if you could get him to a shorter term deal for certain. It took 7 years for the Chicago Blackhawks to re-sign pending 2026-27 restricted free agent Frank Nazar to his contract extension as Chicago continues to lock down the youth in Chicago. Man, that sounded wrong. Damn. I didn't mean it like that. I know it's Chicago. I didn't mean it like that. But they are. You got to like how they're signing the young guys to reasonable long-term deals early, right? Before extending that free agency out as they continue their rebuild. What do you think of the signing, bro?
Oh, I love it. It was a little sooner than I expected, but I mean, I love it for Chicago. That's something that they need to do right now. They need to lock in on their young talent. Nazar is definitely one of them. Bedard's next. Because they need to focus on getting this nucleus together, getting it formed, and putting the proper talent around these guys. I thought Chicago had an okay free agency. I thought they had their offseason. I think they definitely did improve a little bit. Now you got a goaltender in Spencer Knight. You're going to have him for a full year, so you're going to be able to see where he goes as he continues to grow and develop. I believe that they have their franchise goalie moving forward. But I love it for Chicago. You get Nazar done and out of the way, and all you got to do right now is focus on Connor Bedard getting his contract done, and it gives him a little bit of time. It gives him a little bit of time to be able to really negotiate how long they need to negotiate to get the Bedard contract done. So I love it. Real quick before Robbie, you give your next piece.
Go for it, brother.
What's up, Eileen? She says, do y'all think Brittany will ever win a Stanley Cup as a coach? He gets so far and then they lose. It's crazy.
I responded to her. I think it will happen, right? Because of the work ethic, right? They have a strong team there in Carolina. They just have run into the buzzsaw that is the Florida Panthers. But the Panthers got to be down for, or due for a down year sooner or later. And, that's a little prelude into my next news point. But I think to answer Eileen's question here, they're going to stick with it. And whether it be with this Carolina team or maybe even elsewhere down the road, he's a great hockey mind. And you got to think that he didn't win the cup as a player, or no, he did it with the Carolina Hurricanes. Excuse me.
Yep.
But I think he too will be hoisting it as a coach.
Yeah, I
want to forget that Carolina Cup, even though I like seeing former Flyers win the Cup, but that one hurt. I would have wished that to be with the Flyers. I'll be honest.
How do you think our old friend Chris Pronger felt? He lost that one.
Yeah,
he lost that one, and then he won one the very next year. So,
yeah.
I'm in full agreement with you there, Robbie. I think he does as a coach. He's too smart. He has too good of an IQ. He really is a team guy. Guys just want to run through walls for him. It's hard to not get behind him. I think the one thing that's truly holding this team back, one is not having a stud goaltender because, like you said, they keep running into these buzzsaw teams, Florida Panthers specifically. They have a superstar goaltender. Tampa Bay Lightning, superstar goaltender. So it's tough. And when you don't really have that pure superstar player, it gets a little bit harder too. I think that's something that they're really missing. Like, I love Aho, think he's a great player. Svechnikov, it's going to be a tremendous player. Logan Stankovic, tremendous player. So they definitely have the talent there. They need to develop a true superstar. And I think that's finally going to get him over the hump. But I whether it's with Carolina or somebody else, Rob Brindamore, he will win a Stanley Cup as a coach. He's too good of a coach to go his entire team without winning a cup. She also goes on to say, I wish Brittany would have also won when he was a Flyer. He's an amazing player / coach. Agreed, Eileen, 100%. All right, Robbie, what else you got?
Speaking about the aforementioned Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk will miss the start of the 2025 26 season after undergoing surgery earlier this summer. His recovery timeline remains uncertain, though he could be sidelined until January. This is according to at the fourth period on Twitter. That would definitely be devastating for the Florida Panthers, but we all know Kachuk hasn't been right health-wise for a while, so it's good to hear that he's getting things cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Last year he had the broken sternum. Before that, he had another injury. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you know the style of play that he has, it's grueling on the body. When you play that gritty physical game, he's fast too. So you know he's coming at you like a freight train. He hits you hard. So you know, like you said, it's good that he's getting healthy. It's a shame he's going to miss the beginning of the year, especially after getting named the NHL 26 cover athlete with his brother and his father, which I think is awesome, by the way. Never thought I'd see Keith Kachuk on an NHL cover. But so good for him to get healthy. I mean, as just a pure hockey fan, you never want to see a guy get hurt or miss any time. But, you know, it happens. It's sports. It is what it is. You know, just take the time, get healthy, get back on the ice, and just make sure you're 100% ready to go. Brother, you got anything else?
Let's talk Marco Rossi, brother.
You got it, brother. All right, so Marco
I'm
Rossi.
I'm gonna save on this day for the end.
Gotcha. No worries. So Marco Rossi finally signed. He was rumored to be traded at the draft. He was rumored to be traded after the draft, but they finally got the deal done. Signs a 3-year extension worth $5 million a year through the duration of that contract. What do you think of the bridge deal? Do you think that this was a smart deal for Minnesota moving forward and Billy Guerin, or do you think that a bridge deal might hinder the relationship a little bit? Or do you think Rossi's going to wind up trusting the process, proving himself over the next 3 years, and landing his big-time deal after this?
Yeah, I think it's a great move. We saw it here in Philadelphia, right? And with Marco Rossi, they couldn't, come to agreement on a long-term deal, and that's what's, led to trade speculation. But this keeps him in Minnesota Wild uniform. I really doubted from the beginning that he was going to go anywhere else. They were going to, give him this opportunity. And I think it's a position where both the player wins and the team wins, right? And Marco Rossi is going to be a stud in this league, and he'll show that and then either command bigger dollars from Minnesota or elsewhere, but at least Minnesota gets the services for 3 years.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, this is really good for them moving forward. I'm actually pulling up their salary cap real quick because I want to see where they are, because you have Kaprizov coming up. He's on a contract year this year, so that's something you really do have to worry about. If my computer wants to work. Mm-hmm. All right, so Kaprizov is making $9 million this year. Then he's a UFA. You got Matt Boldy over the next few years, averaging $7 million a year. You have Eriksson Ek making $5.25 million over the next 4 years. Marco Rossi $5 million over the next 3 years. So you have your guys that is making big time money. So here's where my question is going to lie. So you got Kaprizov coming up. You have to worry about, okay, he's one of the best offensive players in the league. He's probably going to demand quite a bit. He's probably going to be close to Leon Draisaitl money, if not more. The thing is going to be, okay, so where are we going to get some money from? All right, so let's look. Let's see where we're going to possibly get some money from. They're going to obviously free up $9 million from his contract being up. Vladimir Tarasenko, who I forgot was even there, he's going to free up almost $5 million at the end of this year. Matt Zuccarello, just over $4 million. They're going to free that up at the end of the year. Defensively, they don't really have anybody except for Zach Bogosian, who's not under a multi-year deal. See Brock Faber's their prize back there, but Jared Spurgeon, 2 years left. Jacob Middleton's got 4 years left. So you're not really freeing up a ton of money there, but you also got Philip Gustafson, who's up at the end of this year. So there's going to be money there. So currently they're looking at I believe it was 4.4 million available. So with where they are cap wise, and depending on where they are in the standings and how active they are at the trade deadline, there is a real possibility here that maybe Kaprizov tests free agency to see if he can't get that $14-15 million a year, which I think would be bonkers if he got that. But, even with the salary cap going up 2 next year, do we see Minnesota being able to make a move like that?
I really don't. I don't. I see Kaprizov moving on, and they'll want to maybe save some of that cash for Rossi once this 3-year deal runs out. I think it's, this 3-year deal for Rossi really has, some, symmetry with the Tyson Forster 2-year deal, right? The Cam York 5-year deal, a little longer term, but still around the same average annual value, around 5 mil, 5.15 for Cam York. Right, 3.75 AAV for Tyson Forster, right? So they're only going to be able to sign one of the guys, right? So if you're going to spend 15 mil on Kaprizov, what is that? You know what I mean? What's that telling Rossi, right? So I think, a lot of this could change. I know with the cap going up helps them, but let's say Minnesota Wild goes on a strong playoff run this year, right? And builds up capital that way, and goes all the way like to the Western Conference Finals, right? Then I could start maybe seeing that as you start building buzz in the team. But for now, until you have that capital coming in, there's just too many eggs, not enough frying pans.
Yeah, no, for sure. And jumping back to Rossi to kind of piggyback off of some of the stuff that you said, I'm with you 100%. I think this is a smart deal. He hasn't really shown that scoring prowess that he had in the draft after being drafted as ranked as one of the best offensive scorers in the draft class. We haven't really seen it yet. So I think this is more of a listen, we want you here, but you got to prove it to us that you can be the scorer that we think you can be.
Right.
And for that, I mean, I think it's a fair deal. Like you said, you brought up a couple of really good names of RFAs this year, making 3 years, 5 mil, 5 years, 5 mil, so on and so forth. So a couple of really good examples of why I think this is a fair deal. Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think Mason McTavish is going to be the exception here because he's already proven what he can do at this level. He's proven that he's continuing to take these steps forward. He's showing his value. Now, the reason why I think he's going to get more is for that reason. Marco Rossi hasn't shown me that yet. Or at least he hasn't shown me. I mean, Billy Guerin hasn't seen it yet. But again, like you said, I didn't think he was getting traded. Wishful thinking, obviously, being a center, Flyers needing a center. It's fun to talk about. It's a fun pipe dream. But,
sure.
I mean, realistically, he's a big piece for the Minnesota Wild moving forward. They drafted Ryan O'Rourke to be their number 1 defenseman. He flamed out. I think he actually wound up signing somewhere else. He was a UFA, I believe, at the end of this past season. So he's gone. So you really need to hit on this draft pick. The guys that this team has hit on outside of Kaprizov, for the most part, have been outside the organization. So you've really got to prove to yourself as an organization and as a GM, Bill Guerin, that you can draft well. So, I think this is a really good prove-it deal. I think we're going to see the best of Marco Rossi. I think the best is yet to come. And I think moving forward, he's going to earn his long-term deal, and he's going to get his $8 million that he wanted. But the question is, where's the Minnesota Wild going to be? As far as are they going to be in the full rebuild? Are they going to be in a retool? Or are they going to be in full win now? So as a Flyer show, let's go rebuild. Let's go rebuild. Let's knock them out. Just take the competition out. Do you have any other news over there, Robbie?
Yeah, just to wrap up that point, I think it worked out exactly the way it should have, because this allows Jet Lachenko to fill that role, right? That Marco Rossi would, right? And then you draft a bigger center iceman in this year's draft. So you're going to get bigger in center ice and allow your wingers to sort of feed off that. So ultimately, the chips fell where they were supposed to. Yeah, on this day, August 26, 1971, Bobby Orr, speaking of contracts, became the NHL's first $1 million man as he signed a new contract that year with the Boston Bruins. This shout out to at Inside the Rink on Twitter. Man, I mean, nowadays, 1971, $1 million, that would be like, that'd be like what today? Like 50 million at least.
Oh, you're asking the wrong person, brother. But I mean, think about it. Like, just think about the time. Think about that. Like, everything was like life was pretty good for the most part. Everybody was making a very comfortable living. You could afford to live. God, then you make the $1 million. If things had stayed that way, he was set for life, and he had set up his kids for a long time to be the first $1 million man.
But I mean, you talk about I mean, what he did for the defensive ice position in terms of, the offense. He never saw that before. So I mean, just absolutely legendary legend that, got paid today. Yeah. He got paid. But I think it was indicative too of these times where as we saw with Kurt Flood, in baseball, where the pioneers of free agency have it's late, guys. Paved the way. Paved the way for the guys today to get paid their money. So that's that.
Yeah, everybody needs to have that pioneer. People just think, and this isn't everybody. This is, the guys that are just coming into sports and understanding how all this stuff works is like, you got the thing you got to think about is your revenue turn kind of helps with how players are going to get paid. And if your revenue is good, you're going to be able to pay your players well. So at that time, obviously, cost of living was way lower than it is now. You didn't have as much going on as far as marketability. There was no internet. There was no social media. All the market. I mean, you had TV, you had radio. That was basically your, I guess you could say, your entertainment market for marketing there. So you had your radio, you had your TV. And then anything that happened inside the stadiums, there really wasn't a whole lot going on back then. So to be able to pull enough money, and at that time, the Boston Bruins were a staple in the NHL. They were just consistently one of the best teams in the league. You're pulling in ticket revenue, you're pulling in all that stuff. You finally get to the point where, like, we're really pulling in some money here. Let's pay the reason why. Nowadays you have social media, you have Twitter, you have TV, radio, you have billboards, you have so many different ways to market and pull revenue that it's easier to pay these guys a lot more money because you have more of a pool to draw from. So back then, to have a player hit $1 million, I mean, it couldn't happen to a better player. Couldn't have happened to a better player. I mean, that's the infamous Superman goal score, Bobby Orr, Yeah, like I said, couldn't happen to a better guy. All right, Robbie, you got anything else?
Nah, that's it, brother. That's it. I think I'm going to go chillax for the evening, but it's good talking about where our expectations should be leading in the training camp. I love the tone that Rick Tocchet has set here 2 weeks before camp opens. And is it October yet? Like, the NHL season can't start fast enough. But like I said, I manage expectations, but this team has the capabilities to push for a playoff spot. I firmly believe that.
No, I'm with you. I do think this team is constructed well enough to compete for a playoff spot as well. And I think Rick Tocchet's going to be the guy to get him there. Whether it's this year or not, I think Rick Tocchet's going to be the guy. Like I said, he's a smart guy. He knows how to connect with his players. He knows how to get the best out of his players. So, I think this is going to be a really fun season regardless of the result. I think we're going to see this team take a step forward. And I think the playoffs are closer than a lot of people think. And that is the optimist in me. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So for whatever that's worth, but playoffs, I can sniff them. I can definitely sniff them, but I'm with you. Is it October yet? Just asking for a friend. We are a couple weeks away from training camp, so we'll keep you posted on all that stuff. But until then, we have been brought to you by SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. Aches, pains, joint issues, anything like that. Post-surgery, you just need some PT. Go over to Specialized Physical Therapy, SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. There's 2 locations, one in Burlington, one in Cherry Hill. So we definitely have locations for you that are within driving distance. So check them out. Dr. Paul Vidal, he is our doc. Make him yours. That guy right there, that's Rob Povia. I'm Dales. This has been Flyers Talk A2D. Tomorrow night, we got A2D Wednesday. I'm sure they're going to be talking Eagles now that training camp's up. We're about a week and a half away from the start of the season. Banner raising against the Cowboys. Go Birds. They're going to be talking about the Phillies and the Mets series going on right now, which I believe they are tied, which I'm going to double check that real quick.
Yes, sir. 5-5.
Yeah, let's go. They're going to talk about that. I'm sure there's probably some Sixers talk on the board as well. So make sure you check them out. Believe what's on Friday. I don't think there's anything Friday, Thursday.
The final whistle.
Oh, yes. Final whistle on Friday. And then we have Unfiltered, I believe it's called, with Tony and Tommy on Thursdays. So we got a lot in store. So make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe. Guys, and Pove, until next week, chat. Be good. Be safe. God bless. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.
That's my D partner.